Hamilton to the Angels, and we have a new rivalry to talk about. They were rivals before, but nothing historic like it is now.
On July 14th, 2008, at the final All-Star game at Old Yankee Stadium, something magical happened. A man who should have been dead 3 years earlier stepped into the batter's box and proceeded to put on one of the greatest shows in home run derby history. His name was Josh Hamilton, and in that moment, hitting 28 home runs in a single round, 13 of them consecutive, he wasn't just launching baseballs into the Bronx night. He was launching himself back from a place so dark, most people never return. But this isn't a story about redemption. Not really, because sometimes the thing that saves us can't save us forever. To understand Josh Hamilton's fall, you first have to understand just how high he was supposed to rise. Josh Hamilton grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, in the kind of family where church on Sunday was a non-negotiable, and beer was something you waited until 21 to touch. Because that was the law, and Josh Hamilton followed the law. On the baseball diamond at Athens Drive High School, Hamilton was otherworldly. As a senior, he hit .529, not a typo, with 13 home runs in just 25 games. He also threw 96 miles per hour as a left-handed pitcher. Baseball America called him the best high school player they'd ever seen. Better than Alex Rodriguez, better than Ken Griffey Jr. This was a five-tool player who could literally do everything. On June 2nd, 1999, the Tampa Bay Devil Rays selected Josh Hamilton with the first overall pick in the MLB draft. They gave him a $3.96 million signing bonus, the largest in franchise history at the time. The plan was simple. Josh Hamilton would start in rookie ball, work his way up through the minors, and become the face of baseball in Tampa Bay. Maybe the face of baseball, period. And for a while, it looked like that plan would work perfectly. He dominated rookie ball in 2000. At just 19 years old, he was Baseball America's #1 prospect in all of baseball. Everything was going according to script. But life, as it tends to do, had other plans. March 3rd, 2001, spring training in Bradenton, Florida, Josh Hamilton and his parents were driving back from an exhibition game when a dump truck ran a red light and slammed into their pickup truck. There were no severe injuries, but Josh suffered a lingering back problem that would take nearly 18 months to properly diagnose. He played only 27 games that entire 2001 season, and during those long, painful months of downtime, Josh Hamilton was prescribed painkillers. Here's what's important to understand about addiction. It doesn't care how good a person you are. It doesn't care about your talent or your family or your faith or your future. It doesn't care that you never touched drugs or alcohol before the age of 21. For Josh Hamilton, addiction started with a prescription and ended with him weighing 180 pounds, 50 pounds lighter than his playing weight, standing on his grandmother's doorstep at 2 a.m., strung out on crack cocaine. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. At first, it was just pills for the back pain. Then, when the pills weren't enough, it was alcohol. When alcohol wasn't enough, it was cocaine. By 2002, Josh Hamilton was using drugs during the season, acting out the paranoid life of a junkie while still trying to play professional baseball. The Devil Rays sent him to the Betty Ford Center in 2003. It didn't take. He failed a drug test during that spring training. He was late to practices, late to games, and sometimes not showing up at all. In 2004, after multiple failed drug tests, MLB suspended Josh Hamilton indefinitely. He wouldn't play organized baseball for 3 years. 3 years. The prime years of what should have been a Hall of Fame career, gone. But the baseball was the least of his problems. Drugs had destroyed my body, and my mind, and my spirit. I could no longer experience happiness or surprise. I couldn't remember the last time I felt spontaneous joy. Why was I even alive? The lowest point came in October 2005. Josh Hamilton, now 24 years old, had blown through most of his $3.96 million signing bonus. He was homeless, dirty, barely coherent, and had just attempted suicide with an overdose of pills. He staggered up the steps to his grandmother's house in Raleigh at 2 a.m., looking like a ghost of a player who was supposed to save baseball in Tampa Bay. But sometimes, rock bottom is exactly where you need to be. Hamilton's grandmother, his parents, his wife Katie, they staged an intervention. Not the kind you see on TV, but the kind where people who love you refuse to let you die. And somehow, this time, something was different. Hamilton checked into his 8th rehab facility, but this time, instead of just trying to get clean, he surrendered completely. He found faith, not just the church on Sunday kind he grew up with, but the desperate life or death kind that people discover when they have literally nowhere else to turn. By June 2006, Josh Hamilton was clean. Not just cleaned, transformed. He gained his weight back, his eyes were clear. For the first time in years, he picked up a baseball bat. The Cubs selected him in the Rule 5 draft, then traded him to the Cincinnati Reds. At 25 years old, Josh Hamilton was going to make his major league debut, 7 years after being drafted first overall. April 2007, Great America Ballpark in Cincinnati. Josh Hamilton stepped into the batter's box for his first major league at-bat, and everyone in the stadium knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. Not because of what he did, though he did hit .292 with 19 home runs that rookie season, but because of what he represented. Here was proof that sometimes people really can come back from the dead, but it was in Texas where Josh Hamilton truly came alive. In December 2007, the Reds traded Hamilton to the Texas Rangers for a pitcher named Edison Volquez. The Rangers were blown away by what they had acquired. This wasn't just a talented player, but the Rangers also understood what they were dealing with. They put a comprehensive support system around Hamilton. He was never alone. He had an accountability partner at all times. He carried only small amounts of cash. His wife was always nearby. In 2008, Josh Hamilton erupted for 32 home runs and 130 RBIs, a Silver Slugger Award winner. And then came July 14th. The 2008 Home Run Derby at Yankee Stadium was the moment Josh Hamilton announced to the world that he was back. Not just back, better than anyone had ever imagined. 28 home runs in the first round, a single round record that still stands to today. Some of those balls traveled over 500 feet. One nearly left the entire stadium. The crowd was on its feet. Fellow All-Stars were watching like little kids. For 10 minutes, Josh Hamilton was the best baseball player on earth. He lost the Derby to Justin Morneau in the final, exhausted after his epic first round. But nobody cared. What they had witnessed was transcendent. And then came 2010, 359 batting average, 32 home runs, 100 RBIs in just 133 games. Josh Hamilton led the American League in virtually every offensive category and was named the American League Most Valuable Player. I would say a 99% chance that this would never happen, Hamilton said at his MVP press conference. I mean, honestly, I think a lot of people would agree with that. He was right. The kid who was supposed to be dead from a drug overdose had just won the MVP award. It was one of the greatest comeback stories in sports history. But this is where our story takes a turn. Because Josh Hamilton's sobriety, it turned out, wasn't as solid as everyone hoped. In August 2009, photos surfaced of Hamilton shirtless in a bar in Tempe, Arizona, surrounded by women. Witnesses said they heard him asking where he could get cocaine. They said he was planning to go to a strip club. Hamilton held a press conference, admitted to drinking alcohol, his first drink since October 2005. He said he had very little memory of the night. Obviously, it was one of those things that reinforced that I can't have alcohol. I got away from the one thing that kept me on the straight and narrow, and that was my relationship with the Lord. MLB tested him 2 days later. He passed. The Rangers stood by him. His teammates, aware of his struggles, celebrated their playoff victories with ginger ale instead of champagne, just so Josh wouldn't be tempted. It seemed like a minor slip, a cautionary tale with a happy ending. Before everything changed with his move to LA, Josh Hamilton was a part of a tragedy that would weigh heavily on him and the entire baseball community. It was a hot summer game in Arlington, Texas. In the second inning, a father and his 6-year-old son called out to Hamilton in left field, hoping for a souvenir. Shannon Stone, a 39-year-old firefighter and a devoted dad, just wanted to catch a baseball for his son. Hamilton made a gesture of kindness, a gentle toss of a foul ball towards the stands. Stone leaned out, reached for the ball, and in a heartbreak, lost his balance, fell 20 feet onto the concrete right in front of his son. Stone later died from his injuries, leaving the ballpark community and Hamilton in shock and grief. Hamilton later described watching the fall like it happened in slow motion, haunted by the screams of Stone's young son. The aftermath rippled across the league. Safety measures and stadium designs were re-examined. A fund was set up for Stone's son, Cooper. But perhaps the most remarkable response came from Shannon Stone's own mother. She wrote to Hamilton soon after the tragedy, urging him, "Please don't stop throwing those balls. Because that's so important. That's why dads bring their little boys to the game. For memories like that, please don't stop." It was a tragic and unforeseeable accident, a moment meant to create joy, turning into heartbreaking loss. For Josh Hamilton, already burdened with so much, it was yet another reminder of how thin the line can be between heroism and heartbreak in the life of an athlete. Then came February 2012. Hamilton admitted to having 3 or 4 drinks at a Dallas area bar. Another relapse, another press conference, another apology. "I had a weak moment on Monday night," he said, struggling to keep his emotions in check. Still, the Rangers stuck with him, because when Josh Hamilton was on the field and sober, he was capable of magic. In May 2012, Hamilton hit 4 home runs in a single game against the Orioles, becoming just the 16th player in MLB history to accomplish that feat. He finished the season with 43 home runs and 128 RBIs. He was going to be a free agent, and despite the relapse, every team in baseball wanted Josh Hamilton, but none wanted him more than the Angels. December 13th, 2012, the Angels signed Josh Hamilton to a 5-year, $125 million contract. It was, in hindsight, the beginning of the end. Hamilton never fit in LA. His numbers declined immediately. In 2013, he hit just .250 with 21 home runs, his lowest power numbers since his comeback. In 2014, injuries limited him to just 89 games. And then came February 2015. Josh Hamilton admitted to using both cocaine and alcohol during the offseason. Not just a drink or two this time, cocaine. The drug that had nearly killed him a decade earlier. The Angels were furious. They had paid $125 million for a player who was now back on the drugs that had derailed his career in the first place. An arbitrator ruled that Hamilton couldn't be suspended because he had voluntarily reported the relapse, but the damage was done. The Angels wanted nothing to do with him. In April 2015, the Angels traded Hamilton back to the Texas Rangers and agreed to pay $68 million of the $83 million remaining on his contract just to get rid of him. $68 million to make him someone else's problem. Hamilton returned to Texas to a standing ovation, but his body was broken. Knee injuries, shoulder injuries, the accumulated damage of years of drug abuse and baseball wear and tear. He played just 50 games in 2015 and 2016 combined. On August 23rd, 2016, the Texas Rangers released Josh Hamilton. He would never play Major League Baseball again. Josh Hamilton's career statistics: a .290 batting average, 200 home runs, 701 RBIs across 9 seasons. Of the 143 individuals who have won the MVP award, Hamilton had the shortest career of anyone who still is an active player. In 2019, he was inducted to the Texas Rangers Hall of Fame. 3 months later, he was arrested on charges of child abuse after his 14-year-old daughter told police he had physically assaulted her. In 2022, Hamilton pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge of unlawful restraint. Here's what I keep thinking about Josh Hamilton. For a brief shining moment, he was exactly what he was supposed to be. The greatest home run derby performance in history, an MVP award, one of the most talented players baseball has ever seen. But talent isn't enough, willpower isn't enough, faith isn't enough. Sometimes the thing that's hunting you is stronger than all those things combined. Josh Hamilton's story really isn't just about baseball. It's about the monsters we carry with us. And sometimes, no matter how fast we run or how high we climb, they catch up. The rise and fall of Josh Hamilton reminds us that in the end, we're all just human. And being humans means that sometimes our greatest victories and our deepest failures are separated by the thinnest margins.